Hi, this is Beth with Around the Table Yarns, and this is the second part of the Poet Socks by Sari Nordland, and we are going to be working through the steps to turn the heel. The first part of this we worked on last month in September, and so there's a video of our tubular cast on and setting up the chart, and now we're just going to be working on the heel, making the heel flap, setting that up, and then doing the heel turn and getting ready to work in the round again for the foot. So the Poet Socks are a lace and cable and patterned leg worked from the top down with a tubular cast on. And there are 3 repeats of the pattern, and they are marked between I'm doing it magic loop style. So it's a 20 stitch repeat. So here's the first 20 stitches of my pattern and a marker, and then the next 10, and then the next 10 are on the back needle, and the last 20 are also on the back needle. So that is how we've been working the pattern. So we've read the chart from stitch number 1 over to stitch number 20, and then from stitch 1 to stitch 10, and then 11 to 20, and 1 to 20 again on the back. So now I've worked the whole of the chart, and I'm not going to continue until it's 7 inches. I'm perfectly happy with my leg this long. So I'm ready to start my heel shaping or my heel turn. And the first part of the heel flap is worked across the back of the sock, which is going to be this motif. That was my cat Bug visiting. And so we're going to work in pattern across the first 15 stitches, and then we're going to turn and work back so that we go across the 15 stitches of this needle, and then that's going to be the stitches that make up our heel flap. So it's a little bit of a setup because we are working the heel flap centered on the point where we cast on. Okay. So I will work, so the next round that I would be on would be round 1, because this was the last round of the chart. So I'm just going to pull up my pattern off camera and work round 1 for the first 15 stitches. So that would be for me a knit 1, purl 1. My cat wants to help me and he's moving my pattern away. Knit 1, purl 1, knit to the center purl stitch right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches of purl, 12, 13, 14, 15 is my yarn over. So I've knit the first 15 stitches and I'm turning the work. I'm slipping 1 with the yarn in front. So I've turned the work at the 15th stitch. I slip the first stitch with the yarn in front. I purl 14. So that'll take me back to the beginning of the round. Because I'm working magic loop, I've just been keeping track of my beginning of round by looking where my tail was. So I don't have a beginning of round marker to remove. So I'm going to work back to the beginning of the round, which is the start of this needle for me. And then I'll change needles. So I finished what's on this needle. This needle is loose. I'm going to turn. I'm going to push, interestingly, the back needle into position. And so the back needle is in the stitches, and then I'm going to keep my working yarn out of the way, I'm going to pull my front needle out, ready to work backwards on these stitches. And these stitches I will purl. So I'll slip. I've slipped one with yarn in front and purled 14. I've removed the beginning of the round marker, and now I'm going to purl 14 back. Sorry, I slipped one with yarn in front here, purled 14. Now I'm turning the work at the beginning of the round, and I'm going to purl another 14 and turn the work again. I want to pull that kind of firm when I make that turn. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, now the stitches here, I'm not going to be working on. Those are my instep stitches. And this was the point where I did my turn here. So I would like to reposition my magic loop. So I'm going to pull the magic loop through there and through here to reposition it. Let me unwrap the yarn from it. So my working yarn is now there, and these stitches are now centered on my cast on here. So these are the stitches I'm going to work back and forth on the heel. I tried not to make that look like a magic trick. But essentially the beginning of the round was here, and I worked over and slipped one and turned, or turned, slipped one and worked back to the beginning of the round, worked over to here, and then I repositioned my loop around the stitches that I just worked. Okay, so that's how they're dividing the heel flap. So now I'm going to work over these 29, not 30 stitches, and I'm going to leave the rest of the 31 stitches on the other half of the needle. So we're just going to work back and forth on these. And it's a reinforced heel flap, so we will be only on the right side rows slipping every other stitch, and then the wrong side rows will be slip the first one and then all purl. So my working yarn has managed to get stuck in the middle because of my maneuvers. So I'm going to free that up first. Since otherwise I don't think I'll be able to get back to it very easily. Okay. So don't do that at home. All right. So the markers are on the side that I'm not working on now because of my maneuvering. Okay, so here we are starting the heel flap. I'm on the bottom of an unnumbered page. I'm on the bottom of the first page where it says heel flap. At the very bottom section, it says row 1, right side, and starts with slip 1 with yarn and back. So that's where I am. So I'm going to slip 1 with the yarn in the back, and then I will knit 1, And this is a repeat, so I slip again and knit one, and I'm going to do that all the way across the row. So I'm just slipping my stitch purlwise. So I put my right needle into the stitch from behind the leg as if I were going to purl. And then I put my needle into the next stitch to knit it. And the reason we do that is to not twist the stitches or reorient the stitches on the needle as you slip them. We want them to stay with the right leg facing forward, and slipping them purlwise is what does that. And I work all the way across. The last stitch is slipped. Double check that. Slip one, knit one, 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 slip one, slip one.
It
Yes.
ends with a double knit.
It ends with a double knit
Yes.
until one stitch remains, and then knit one. Thank you. So there are, it was like it's going to be slipped on the next row, so there's no way we can be slipping it there. Okay, so we have the knit one at the end of that, of the right side row. So it starts with a slip one, and so in pairs until you get to the last pair of stitches, and they are both knit. Okay, so we turn, and row 2, you're going to use the same needle, sorry, the other needle, but you're working back and forth on the same stitches. You're not turning to go around to the other needle. I'm saying that because I was teaching sock class and people kept trying to work to the other needle, and it was like, we're not in the round. We're not in the round. This is not in the round. This is just back and forth. So I'm slipping the first stitch with the yarn in front, and then I'm purling all. That is the only slip stitch is at the beginning of that row. And these are rows, not rounds. Okay, so I've demonstrated this. We are going to repeat this 14 times for a total of 15 pairs of these rows. Does anybody have any questions about the two things we've done so far? Repositioning the stitches and the slip stitch reinforced heel flap. There's no questions. This is excellent. So again, the purl row, the wrong side row, is only slipped the first stitch and then purled all the way across. And then we'll turn back to do the next pair of reinforced heel rows. So I'm going to pause here and do the next 14 pairs, and then we'll do the heel turn. All right, so I finished my 15 rows of the reinforced ribbing. And so I'm going to work on turning the heel, and they nicely tell you that we are doing a French heel, which means that we will be doing short rows back and forth on these stitches. So we'll work across partway and then turn, and then work back and forth, adding stitches and decreasing stitches on both sides until we make a little V-shaped turn, and then we'll pick up for the gusset. So hopefully we can do that all in one go, or close to. So I'm at the top of the second page of the pattern, and I'm turning the heel according to the instructions there. So I'm going to slip one with the yarn in back, and I'm going to work across 16 stitches more. So that's 17 total. So 1 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So that positions me past the center point of the heel. If I count, well, let's do that in just a sec. So once we've slipped 1, we've worked 16 more. Now I'm going to do an SSK, which is a left leaning decrease. So this will lean in the direction of the V, in that left direction. And then I'm going to knit 1 more. And the remaining number of stitches on my needle are 3, 6, 9. So I always think that's a good thing to know, so that you know that you're making a centered heel turn. So I'm turning and doing row 2. So we're still working back and forth. And so I'm going to slip the first stitch with yarn in front and purl 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to do a purl 2 together, purl 1 more stitch, and I had 9 over here. There should be 9 here. 3, 6, 9. Perfect. So now you're going to turn. Now notice on this side, there's a gap where I turned. So we're going to be working to 1 stitch before the gap. So I turn, slip that first stitch purlwise, and then you're going to knit to 1 stitch before the gap. You can almost feel it coming in your left hand. 2 more. And then you're going to do the SSK again. So the SSK again is a left leaning decrease, and you slip a stitch as though to knit. You slip another stitch as though to knit. And then you put those 2 slip stitches, you put the left needle through the fronts of those 2 slip stitches and work around the back of them to do the decrease. And that leans nicely to the left. So you can see this sort of line of leaning stitches. Work 1 more stitch, just 3, 6, 7. Then we're going to do a slip, purl. So you're always slipping purlwise, except when you're doing the SSK. My cat is trying to, he's like here, like right there.
Get that yarn.
Kind of wants it. He kind of wants to knock my pattern over is what he's going for. Okay, so now I'm purling 2 together, which is also a left leaning decrease. And then I purl 1 more, and there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm staying centered. Slip 1, work to 1 stitch before the gap. We're going to do our decrease across the gap. So you slip the first one before the gap, knitwise, slip the second one after the gap knitwise, put the left needle into the fronts of those 2 stitches and work them together. Work 1 more. There's 5 remaining. Gets to be a theme. I like to do anything with short rows in 1 sitting. I really find it hard to keep my place if I stop in the middle of a short row sequence. So I try and give myself the 10 or 15 minutes or 30 or 40 or whatever it takes to get it done in 1 sitting, because it's really hard to, like, if I have to stop here, and I have to put it away, it's hard to know exactly what I did. So I just did my purl 2 together, purl 1 more. There's 5 remaining. Slip 1. So we're going to continue doing this until there are no more stitches to work on the sides of the heel flap. So 1 more. I have 3 remaining. I'd sort of feel those stitches coming because the gap is tactile. But if you don't, you can also stop and count or stop and check. So like right now, I could stop and count and say, okay, here's my gap. That's 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14 more stitches. So if I'm at a loss to know where the gap is, I could say, okay, it's 14 stitches to the gap, and then count to the 14th, the 13th, which is the one before it. And you can also see it, I can see it coming on my left needle right under my finger. SSK. And knit 1 more. And turn. Slip. Last pair of decreases are worked right on the edge of the heel in these rounds. Omit the last knit 1 or purl 1. Okay. I was going to say we're going to run out of stitches if we have to do the last knit 1 or purl 1. So purl 2 together, purl 1, leaves me 1 stitch. When I make the turn, slip. So I'm working over to the last decrease on the knit side. It's going to be at the very end of this row. We've decreased stitches along, so we no longer have 29 stitches. I'll count them in just a second. Okay, so I omit the last knit 1. I turn and work back. So I'll slip that stitch. Work back to the last 2 stitches, and there should be 17 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have 2 stitches left. Purl those together and turn. So my heel turn looks like a little trapezoid. So it's flat at the bottom with this angle, and those decreases line up because they're right leaning or left leaning decreases. So they line up on the angle of the turn. And that's what gives you the heel turn. So now I just want to demonstrate picking up the gusset and rejoining in the round. So I'm going to continue working in the round. They suggest you can knit them through the back loop on the first round. To avoid holes, you can pick up extra stitches as needed and decrease them on the following rounds to get the right stitch count. And if you want a higher instep, you can pick up extra stitches along the edge of the heel flap or decrease at the gusset at a slower rate. So I know your friend talked about doing the oh my gosh heel, which had a very different way of doing that. So I am not going to do anything extra here, but I do like that suggestion of decreasing at a slower rate. So instead of every other round, if you have a very high instep, you could decrease every third round. And that would give you a little bit more room across the top of your foot. I also suggest that for toes if you have shovel-shaped feet like I do. Okay, so we're going to slip one with the yarn and back, knit across the heel stitches. So slip one with yarn and back, knit across those other 16 heel stitches. And then I'll show you how to pick up the gusset stitches, and then we'll be back to working in the round. So I get all the way across to the end. And then with the same needle, I want to pick up stitches, and you have to kind of unroll the edge to see them. But you can see those little V's of the stitches that were slipped along the edge of my heel flap. So starting at the base of this stitch, I'm coming out of this one already, so I want to go under the next one. I go from the front of the fabric to the back, wrap the yarn around and pull it through. And I'm going to do that for each one. Now she says you can do it through one of those. I tend to like to do it through both. It does make it a little bit thicker in the heel. Apologize for my crying dog. He's playing with the kitty and he wants to go out. So I'm going to pick up one for each of the pairs of rows, and then extra if I feel like I need it to keep the gap closed. Children. So that was my last one. Here's my first pickup stitch here. Right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 11, 12, 13, shh, please, 14. There's the last one, 15. I still have some room to go, and there was a yarn over here. So you can see there's kind of a hole. That's okay because these socks have lace. So I can pick up one more. I think I should pick up one more stitch. I'm going to do it right up here, kind of at the base of the next stitch on my instep. So there's a 16th stitch. Now I'm going to reposition my needles and work across these stitches. And what you need to pay attention to here is that you have worked 15 stitches of round whatever. I was on round 1 of my leg. So now I'm going to be doing from stitch 16. I have to complete that. Let's just double check. They give you an instep chart. So the instep chart should start at stitch 16 of the same 2. Yep, and it does. So depending on where you ended with your leg, if you finished row 46, then when you begin the instep chart here, this coordinates right at the bottom. This coordinates with round 1 of the leg chart. So it does work. So I'm going to go ahead and reposition my magic loop. So I'm going to pull this one out and turn it. And I'm going to follow the chart. And that line, there's a line in my chart that corresponds with this marker. Oh, children. So I'm going to work over it. Here's the middle purl stitch of the lace chart. And this corresponds to stitch number 16 of my instep chart. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And then I go back to purl, knit, purl. Here's the next marker, and that also corresponds with a straight line of pattern repeat in the instep chart. And then I'm going to knit, purl, knit, purl, 2 stitches left, both of them are knit. Okay, so there's my instep nicely centered on the top of my foot, and the chart lines up, the instep chart lines up with the leg chart. So then I turn and I picked up 16 stitches along the other side. So I'm going to repeat that here. I'm going to reposition my magic loop needles. Oops, I lost one. So that's where it came out of. I pulled before I repositioned. So this one goes, the front needle goes in first. But we're going to be picking up with this needle, so we need it nice and loose. Remember, we picked one up at the base. So I'm going to do that right there, which is still kind of loopy, but again, this is a lace sock, so it's okay if I have what looks like a yarn over. And then I'm going to aim for the first of the stitches at the top. So even though this is a line from the yarn over, don't lose your stitches, Beth. Go under there. And again, the needle points from the front of the fabric to the back. You wrap the yarn around the needle at the back of the fabric and pull it through to make that stitch. And then you're going to repeat it for each stitch along the edge. So I pinch those edge stitches between my pointer and my thumb with my left hand. And I use that almost like they were the stitches on my left needle. So I'm not using the left needle at all. You can see it resting against my knuckle here. And I'm just wrapping and pulling through. Oop. Yep. So you should be aware of the number of stitches you picked up the first time. I will not say it's impossible to pick up a different number on this side. If you can pick up the same number, that would be great. Really? But if you can't, that's okay. Sorry, I'm dropping things. So we're still picking up right again to the very bottom of those rows of ribbing that we did. So I'm going to count. There should be 16, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I have one more to do. So I'm going to sneak that one in right up next to the first step, the first stitch of the bottom of my heel. And now the stitches on my needle, these stitches are the bottom of my foot. They will only be in stockinette from this point onward, and only the stitches on the other needle will be in pattern. Okay, with this, the gusset decreases are written in, is that right? Oh, they've got make one left on there. So there are stitches written in to make one here on each edge on the even numbered rows, and that's because you're going to be doing some decreases, and so they're adding a stitch on the edge so that the number of stitches on the top of the foot stays the same. So when you start to work the instep, after we've picked up all the gusset stitches, from the second row until the 16th row, all of the even numbered stitches will be making stitches on each edge, left, making one to the right, making one to the left, to make up for the decrease that's going to happen on each side of that pattern, so that the number of stitches always stays the same, and you have 31 stitches on the top. The number of stitches on the bottom is going to change because you're going to work a decrease at each edge of the bottom stitches every other row, or if you want a higher instep, every third row. So every second row or every third row. And then this, you do that until you get to the base. Generally, I like the base of my pinky toe, or just above the foot part of my pinky toe. So where the crease between my pinky toe and my foot is, that's where I usually stop to start my toe shaping. And the toe shaping would be in stockinette on the top and the bottom, if you choose, and with pairs of decreases, similar pairs of decreases as what we will have on here. So that's an SSK and a knit two together, just like we've done before. Any questions? Does that seem fairly straightforward? All right. It's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoy making the poet socks. I hope you get through the wedding okay.
Thank you.
And are fine. I love that now my animals are perfectly calm.
Of course.
They were doing so well. We are meeting on the Monday before Thanksgiving, which I believe is the 21st, to start the No Sweat Shorties by Olga Olak, who's my friend. And I'm really excited about doing her sock. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you have fun finishing the poet socks. I'm looking forward to, I just think they're really pretty. And so I feel like these are for me.
Yeah.
These are pretty and they're for me.
Yeah. They're work. They're for me. Yeah.
They're a lot of work. They're for me. Who are they for? Me.
Me. Yeah.
So have a great week. I'll see you before Thanksgiving.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. See everybody.
See ya. Good night.
Night.